So welcome to today's Midnight Training Areas sessions. In today's session, we'll be looking at the receiving options and application of funds options for Midnight's postage system. Today we'll focus on how to receive a payment for postage from a customer, how to record the postage used, how to apply funds, and also how to adjust transactions. We'll also be looking at the postage inventory module, in which you can track the balances of your postage devices like stamps, meters, and permits. Finally, we'll take a look at some of the reports that Midnight can generate in order to track this information, either by customer level or over a period of time, to make sure that all of your postage information, be it escrow balances or applied funds, are being tracked and monitored effectively for the most correct information, up to date and available at any time. Let's start by taking a look at some of the drop-down menus that we'll be seeing during today's training session. We start by accessing the admin module. We'll be brought to our account GLID submenu. In particular, in here, we'll start by looking at the accounting submenu under postage accounts. In order to receive a payment from a customer, you do need to create and assign a postage payment account to the customer in which you'll be receiving funds towards. It's not typical that each customer would have a uniquely named account, so in many cases you can simply create your general accounts in here and then assign them to each customer as necessary. In order to add a new postage payment account, you can fill out the details in this bottom row here. You can provide an item code and a GLID, which may correspond to your accounting system, such as QuickBooks or Peachtree, for integration. And finally, you can make sure that the active checkbox is checked, making sure that it is indeed active when being added into your list. This will create a new postage payment account line. And in order to edit any changes that need to be made for that postage account, you can click the Edit button here. Make the changes necessary, and click the Save This button to commit your changes. Alternatively, you can click the Edit button and uncheck the active checkbox to delete or deactivate your postage payment account. I would not suggest doing this unless you're confirmed confidence on the current balance of any postage payment accounts for this instance on any customer record are empty. Otherwise, you may be attempting to deactivate a postage account that has money for a customer before you've properly reassigned it to a different account. In this menu, as well as many others, you can add options by selecting and filling out information in the dark gray containers in the bottom of this list. And you'll see this trend as a core standard for many of the admin menu fields that we'll be looking at. In addition to that, you can also change the view of this menu or other menu tables by changing the options that you see in the top row, such as the search filter for active status, or by running search filters for things like the names or GLID info. And to clear these options, you can click the Clear Filter button to remove all choices, being aware that even the active default value of checked or active equals yes status will be omitted. Next, we'll take a look under the postage module for some of the other core areas. We'll see under here the postage affix. When recording postage that's used on an order, you can select which device that the job would be mailed on. In here, you can list your different permits, meters, as well as different stamp denominations. And this list is integrated in both the order screen itself and within the postage inventory module. The name and description can be based on whatever your standard naming conventions are, but should be set to match up with whatever your accounting system that you may integrate this with has already set within itself. This, along with the GLID or potentially INV or inventory item value, will make sure that there's a smooth transition between Midnight and the accounting software in which you integrate with. The Postage bank account, as well as the WB fields here. Many of these correspond to the window book integration in which we support. If you don't integrate with window book, you don't need to worry about these at all. And if you do, the window book guides provided by window book will help make sure that you populate the right fields into the correct values. Finally, the taxable status is just a secondary field in which, upon export, the taxable status is added out with the integration file that's pushed into your accounting software. The Postage inventory module can be accessed within the accounting submenu here. In Postage inventory, I'll be going over this in greater detail later, but you can see any of the transactions that are made for your stamps, meters, etc., allowing you to view any disbursements or adjustments that need to be made for those particular postage denominations. Back under the Postage module, we'll see under here the Postage spoilage and Postage status. These are simply some info fields that correspond to key information, which can be useful when trying to track and update your payment info. There is no additional logic tied to these, so your reporting information will not be set up in such a way that it might result in failure if you don't always use these. As long as you make sure the payments themselves are occurring, then you can fill these out however you need on the jobs themselves. There's also a couple of different options within the global settings menu we'll take a look at. Under here, depending on which accounting software you integrate with, you can access them within the accounting integration list here. And upon selecting the appropriate one, you may have the option for postage payment information for a postage account that you may want your info exported out of Midnight with. You can fill those out in here as needed, and these will simply match whatever your accounting program has. And finally, under the estimates and orders, you can make sure that any of your customer info for available postage account information is updated accordingly and prepared for extraction out of Midnight by making sure that whenever a customer is added into your system, they're defaulted as having a status of prepay. This, when set, allows you to extract payments out of Midnight made to orders before the order has been closed, allowing your accounting integration function to work a little bit more effectively with regards to postage payment handling. Now let's take a look at a step that may take place before you receive a payment from your customer. In this case, that would be the postage prepay invoice distribution or the postage request. If you look at one of our orders, we can see that under the Postage tab, any of our postage information, such as expected postage due and customer escrow balances, are available under here. This amount can be entered in by selecting the postage affix, which again was populated from the admin menu. And filling out the additional details such as the classification, the date in which the mailing is actually going to occur, the quantity of goods that are actually mailed, and the rate in which they're sent out at. This calculates out to a total, and the sum of all postage affixes gives you your total balance of postage used, which is a fee expected to be distributed out to your client in addition to the services fee in which they'd be paying. We can look under the Data Postage tab and see that if we created an estimate in advance and then exported the estimate into the order, the postage value required will have pushed itself out from the estimate into the order. And for confirmation on which estimate we referenced, we can see the estimate listed here under the Details tab. This works in tandem with the postage estimate rates, which I went over in a previous training session for the estimates themselves. We'll take a brief look at them just to see how those work. So in this case, back in estimate 12271, if we look under the postage tab for this estimate, see the various cases of postage that were applied and the quantities in which they referenced. This value here sums into the postage amount required, which carries forward into the postage dollar required within the order, letting us know what our expected postage amount due will be. Remember, this is just an estimate, though. It is not necessarily de facto in terms of information and can be adjusted as needed. Upon returning to the order, we'll be able to see that the amount that we've put into the Data Postage tab's dollar amount due will carry forward into our standard postage prepay invoice. Again, this is basing its information on the expected value due and not the total amount due. So we'll need to make sure that if we do bill out the postage amount here within the postage prepay invoice, that upon completing the job for postage information, we should try our best to make sure that the total here matches or comes close to what the estimate value is. Now, once you've sent the prepay invoice to your customer and have received payment, you can then record this payment in Midnight. There's a couple of ways to get that information into Midnight. Assuming that your customer has either sent you a check or wired you funds, you can either do it from within the order itself, or you can do it from within the postage module. If you're a sales rep or a CSR and you're responsible for recording payments for the jobs as each job's payment comes in, you'll typically want to utilize the Receive Payment button here. And if you're an accounting representative and you're handling the implementation of multiple checks or multiple payments for multiple customers, you want to handle that more often within the postage module accessible through the Tools module. We'll start by looking at this case under the postage module. Oops. In this case, you can select the customer that you're wishing to reference, fill out the deposit account number, which is associated with the customer record. And then for any of the processing information, such as the date in which the funds came in, the check number or wire transaction number, and the total amount of the check that was received, these can all be filled out in these corresponding fields. Additionally, you can either escrow or earmark classify the funds that are coming in. For clarity, escrow will place these funds into a pool of available funds in which can be pulled out for any case or any job. And earmarked funds can be associated specifically to one job. The jobs in which, for this customer, upon selection, will preload themselves into this drop-down menu for ease of access. Use a check number to be included for your check processing name is alphanumeric. It doesn't always have to refer to specifically a check number. You can usually plug in a cash value, a wire name, or other electronic payment name in here, as long as the naming convention makes sense to you. This check number is available in a couple of places. We can view this within the adjustments list for the particular customer. And we can see this on the invoice after we've begun to apply the funds. Now I've earmarked this $2,920. Also consider adding funds to an escrow account for the same customer. And because we're applying this to escrow, we don't need to select a customer's job to designate it to. Meaning that once we receive it, we can then look at our adjustments list and see that we have another transaction set up in such a way that we've got the available funds associated to no specific job. Let's take a look at the order. We'll see under the Postage tab that we have earmarked funds to this specific job. These will be available based on the first check that we just added or received. In addition, the current escrow balance has shot up based on the second amount in which you received. If you're CSR or sales rep and you're receiving funds instead of using the application of funds module within the receiving of the postage, you can instead do it here through the receive payment. This brings up a similar screen in which you'll fill out the same general information. Knowing that when you're receiving these funds here, by default, the earmarked the earmarked drop-down box is selected with the order in which you're in pre-selected for your convenience. In this case, because you're receiving funds here, you're not able to apply them to escrow, but it would be atypical that you'd be receiving funds for a customer within a job, but not placing those funds to a job. In this case, we'll click Save and Close after applying name. And we'll see that our earmarked funds have changed here as well. So now we've posted several payments. We can, under the order, apply the funds to that job. There's a couple of different ways to apply funds. For starters, we'll look at how to do it from within the job. You can click the Apply Funds button here. This brings up a screen in which you can see the outstanding amount that's expected to be due for the postage of the job, the outstanding funds required for services, which include here services and tax. You can see the amount of money that in total was earmarked against the job or received to be specifically used on this job. You can see the remaining balance in escrow for the customer record. And then we're given the option to pick and choose how much postage it is that we're actually applying to the postage affixes for the job. And we're also given the choice to apply leftover or additional earmarked funds or escrow funds to the service total of the job. In this case, I'll simply apply $50, leaving $8.80 open. And after filling out whether or not we'd want to stick the remaining funds from earmarked back into escrow, We'll see that we've made an application of funds to our services to match the total here listed at the top. And the portion of our postage funds which have been applied, giving us our outstanding total or remaining balance due. The other way that you can apply funds would be to go back within the postage module itself, click the Apply Payments button, select your customer, and identify from which check your application of funds are coming through. You can see under many of these checks that there is an outstanding balance still available. In some cases like this, we can see that while we've received $1,000, we have also none of those funds available. I'm sorry, all of those funds available. In other cases, if we just receive funds to our escrow account, we can just see that they're fully available as well. Finally, because we've selected the customer, we can see all outstanding balances in which we'd like to apply funds towards. In this case, the $8.80 remaining for postage on our $16.92 job. We can check this checkbox and click Save and Close. And then see that a transaction was made against this check, letting us know that we've pulled funds from it. We can then return back to the job itself and see that under the postage module of the order that we have no longer an outstanding balance due. Finally, if we need to make changes to these, for instance, in a case in which you apply funds to the wrong job, or you incorrectly applied funds at a time in which they shouldn't have been applied, you can make adjustments to the checks themselves. In this case, by accessing the check record, you can see the available location in which any funds are set to. For instance, escrow on this check holding a pretty large total of what's originally in from this check. We can also see the job in which funds were applied towards and the portion, as well as what they were classified against as either postage or service funds. We can edit this line or make an adjustment to change this value. We'll reduce it by $3 for this example. And should you choose to do this, then we need to find a different place to put the $3 difference between our check detail total and our original check amount. Most commonly, you'll either need to do this by adjusting the row to assign the funds to a different job by selecting a new row here and filling in all the details, or by modifying your escrow row by clicking Edit and then adding your total difference back in. Noting that once you've done the math, you'll see that your check detail total at the bottom matches your check amount at the top, allowing you to save out without any errors occurring. If you do set the funds to a different value, you'll notice that in those cases, you'll be unable to save. Because the total amount that was received for the check has not been completely designated as to where it should all be. And the screen will force you to make sure that you're properly applying or locating your funds before you can actually leave. Finally, a quick view into the postage module allows you to view your total balances. In here, You can either select a customer or view your complete customer balance history. The columns here represent the customer's name, the amount of available funds associated with the funds in escrow for each check that's been received against that customer, the total amount that's been earmarked or applied, or in this case, applied to a job or is expected to be applied to the job, the amount used on orders, which is the remaining unpaid balance of postage open on any jobs, and the calculated total balance, which will show the addition of any total available funds minus what's already in store for that customer account. Returning back to the order for some more detailed information handling. There may be cases within your postage record that you need to define some more details for each postage line. In those cases, for the postage record itself, you can click the Details button for the affixed line. And in here, you can fill out your additional info, such as weight, count, more details on the dates, nonprofit info, and the location which it's going. You can also enter detailed information for multiple items that need to be applied based on your postage rates and have them all tally into a single postage line. This will sum everything together and allow your total weight, total rate, and quantity to equal the sum of everything listed within the details pop-out. Finally, the screen is fairly complex, but it does carry association with BCC and WindowBook software. So if you have any integration set up with them, this is where the majority of that information upon import will be stored. Now you can have an order set up in such a way that it is a multi-version job. If you're unfamiliar with versions, then definitely take a look at our order version handling training video. Versions within jobs are typically designated just as multiple jobs within a job. In this case, for instance, I can copy this version, update its quantity, give it a different ship date, and see that the majority of the information will carry forth into the secondary version of the job. In this case, just by copying, we'll see that our postage balance history list over here on the right has maintained itself. But when copying and creating a new version, the total postage is not copied. Often the quantities vary sometimes to do the methods of shipment. So this is a process that would be expected to be entered each time. And as you fill in each line, you'll see that the calculated totals carry into the postage used, summing across the entirety of the order, regardless of which version they're a part of. In this case, if you need to make applications of funds across multiple versions of a job, everything will be summed up into one single order entity. And when you attempt to apply funds, if you do from within the job, the only value that's ever associated is the unpaid balance automatically loaded here, and applying leftovers to services, which are the funds generated by the creation of the new version. After going through everything, we can see that the postage applied to all of our services has summed across the entirety of the job. And the postage applied to the postage element of the job has also been summed across the entirety of the job, leaving us to view the total remaining balance of funds available in escrow, and also if any additional funds are remaining and earmarked for this particular order. Now, one neat trick that you as an accounting representative can do in terms of quickly applying funds across more than one job would be to enter the postage module's adjustment screen or the apply screen. Once you select the customer and the check in which you'd like to apply funds from, if there are any outstanding jobs that have yet to be paid for that customer, but you have funds available for that customer, you can enter the check, and you can check any or all jobs in which you would have the funds to make applications of funds towards to show a summed calculation of applied funds, allowing you to pay for multiple jobs at once. Additionally, under the adjustments list, you can select the customer, and if you're comfortable in knowing which jobs need how much in terms of funds to be applied and where they need to go, you can select each job here under this drop-down and add one line for each row of payment, making sure that you offset the original balance, either the escrow or earmarked funds, to equal out to what they need to. Now, if you need to check your open balances on your postage devices, you can record the stamps that you purchased as well as money added to your meters or permits. All this is handled within the admin menu's accounting postage inventory menu that we mentioned before. Under here, if we were to say purchase some new stamps for use of delivery and shipping, under this menu we can see any of the purchases that were already made. And then if we need to make a new one, we could, under the quick links, create a disbursement. In here, the check number can be added in, as well as the payment in the order of. The pay to order of is a list of your vendors available within your purchase module under the vendors list. The postage device is loaded from your admin menu's postage affix list under your postage submenu. And if you fill out your expected receipt value, then upon submitting your disbursement, you'll have a new line added in, allowing you to track the inclusion and receipt of each different element of postage, stamp, or other method. Now, if you need to record your spoilage, you can click your quick links and then select Add Adjustment. When this screen loads, you can select the device in which you'd like to apply the adjustment against, fill out the quantity, fill out the amount difference, and then any other details such as the spoilage type, transaction date, and comments if necessary, before clicking Submit to commit these changes. This process shows in total that we've added 2,500 stamps to our list and had to adjust for a small, say, loss or usage of 92. To wrap things up, we'll take a look at some of our reports. For starters, under our reports module, we can see a folder titled Postage Reports. This report shows quite a bit of info under each one, depending on what you're looking for. To start, I would typically use the postage used by date or postage used no date reports. What these do is they're reports in which you can search by customer and date range to see different instances of actual postage that's utilized. In this case, for the job that we just created, we can see one of our postage devices because its date falls within the date range of the report. This is typically a report that you may need to extract out of Midnight and provide to your customer. This can be done by utilizing the email command and emailing them a PDF straight out of Midnight. Alternatively, the postage used no date report will show all elements of postage that do not have a date associated with them. In this case, I can see many jobs that have elements of postage with no postage date within the postage tab of the order, allowing me to know that goods, say, have been ordered and planned for shipment and have not yet been given a date for shipment. Additionally, we have the postage inventory report. This is much like the postage inventory screen that we saw in the admin menu, in which we can run a search and sort for our different postage devices and time periods, and then see a full list of transactions made against that particular postage device. We can also see the postage detail by customer report, which is a transactions report that shows money coming in, as well as money being applied or assigned to customers' jobs. In this case here, we can see the 3 checks that we received earlier, as well as the application of funds to postage and services across these 3 checks, all into this one job. Additionally, we can see the opening balance, or the balance of funds available in escrow before and up to the date listed here in the date from. And then after some math has occurred as far as the addition and subtraction of available postage funds, we can see the ending or current balance, which reflects itself based on the to date listed here. Finally, we have our postage checks received by date range. This report is pretty much what it sounds like, a report that shows the amount of funds that have been received or brought in to Midnight over a period of time. In this case, we can see 2 checks that have been received against one specific job and one that was received and applied to escrow. Can be used to search for multiple customers and can give us a grand total of funds that we've seen come in over a period of time. The other reports, such as the summary reports, are all simply summaries of the information which we've already looked at. Finally, back within the orders themselves, the designation and application of postage and payments can be seen across many of the invoice reports. Among our standard invoices, we can see a line item for each element of postage, as well as payment details referencing the check in which funds were pulled from, or any checks that were assigned to this job. We can see where the funds were applied towards, the grand total of postage used across all versions for this job, the grand total of applied funds across all transactions of all checks associated to this job, all of which, when subtracted from the subtotal and tax, can give us a total remaining balance due equal to what the customer still has yet to pay us. We have different invoices that display this in different ways, some of which will show the total price listed out for each item, others which will not. So it's just a matter of picking which standard invoice report works best for you. That concludes today's training session on midnight postage handling. Go ahead and close off the mute, wrap up our video, and open for Q&A.